and we're very excited to have Innovation for Poverty Action One. Annie will be talking to us. Annie is currently the Executive Director of ITA. She's been with them for almost 6 decades, starting as a research director and is now the Executive Director. And before that was in my lovely country at ISNRR, the Yankee University. I was absolutely delighted to have Annie and her colleagues represent to talk us through what our RCTs really work. And we'd like to think about what we do and we have to learn from these RCTs to do our development work better and smarter. We have quite a few people to review, so what we will do is at the end of the presentation, we'll be open to Q&A and we have questions very simply to ask. And then we wrap it up. So that's how we get to the start. So should we pick up, Annie?
Hi everyone, and thank you so much for coming this morning. I know everyone is really busy and new stuff, so thanks for being here. So I'm going to start with the question. I can start with a question. If you had $1 and you'd really like orange, would you buy 1 orange or 4 orange? The same for you. Great. Okay, that is not a tricky question, and I'm glad we are in consensus. Now, the question, the answer is not always that obvious. So let's say that you'd like to donate $100 or invest $100,000 into a program that aims to improve attendance in school in the location. As you know, no attendance is and we don't even know what is access to school basically. So you have the choice between 2 programs. One program that distributes free school uniforms. The hypothesis is that it's a school, the other program runs a school-based deworming intervention. So the idea is that a lot of people go to school because they are sick, and they are sick because they have intestinal worms, because this medicine will help them. So the issue here is that, unlike with the oranges, you don't see what you're buying, which is additional years of school. So how do you know which one to invest in? How do you know which one is best and what the ratio will be? Is it 1 to 4 like the oranges? Is it more? Is it less? What do you guys want to know? What do you do? And again, it really does matter. So this graph shows you the comparative cost effectiveness of these 2 programs. It shows you how many years of school you can buy for $100. So with a school-based deworming program, you can get 14 kids to stay in school for 1 more year with $100. With the uniform program, it works as well, but it's less cost effective. You can get 1 more kid to stay in school for 1 more year. So the point is both programs are effective, but one of them is more cost effective than the other. Of course, this is not the Bible. You have to think about context. There are some countries where there are no wrongs. And I won't talk more about these programs, but there are really 2 key takeaways from this. One is that there can be a lot of variation in the impact of these $100 of return on investments. And second, it's not always obvious which program is going to be more cost effective. So we need to decide the level of impact and also of cost to answer that question. Yes. And so that's really important because most of these people live in extreme poverty still. And as you know, a lot of money gets spent in anti-poverty programs. So this was 134 billion is the amount that was spent by OECD countries versus other countries. Probably those numbers that we mentioned. But the point is that we need to ensure that resources that we spend are spent in a cost-effective manner. So the programs that we are funding, are they working? But even are there maybe even better programs out there that we could do? And yet, the international development sector is actually one of the sectors where the amount of resources spent on R&D, research and development, is the lowest. So if you compare that to other sectors like pharmacy or social media. So our goal at IPA and the goal of other organizations with the same mission is to serve as an R&D department for the international development work and discover ideas that can inform organizations that form or implement programs. And that's why IPA was created in 2002 by Zinkalan, who is a professor of economics at Yale University, with the mission to discover and promote effective solutions to global poverty. So our mission really has two components. The first component is to remedy the fact that the R&D department in the international development space is small, to remedy the fact that there isn't enough evidence. So the first component of our mission is to generate evidence about what works and what doesn't by working with practitioners to design and to evaluate various solutions to poverty-related issues. Now, even when you have evidence, that doesn't mean it's going to be used automatically by decision makers, non-profits, or bilateral organizations, or governments. Right? And when you think about it, that's not surprising. Right? There are a lot of things that we know that we don't necessarily act upon. I know I should probably be exercising several times a week, and maybe I don't always do it anyway. I need peer pressure, I need maybe a coach to show me how to do it well, and reminders. Well, it's the same with the use of evidence. So the second component of our mission is to mobilize and support decision makers to ensure that the evidence that's generated gets used and applied in the real life. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how we do that. So we don't do all of this work alone. Our work relies on partnerships. We work with academics on one hand. We work with a large network, several hundreds of academics from various academic institutions. And on the other hand, we work with organizations that implement programs. So it could be international non-profits like Oxfam or local non-profits, or it could be local governments in the country where we work. So together with the academics and the practitioners, we identify issues related to poverty, and then we identify or design potential solutions to these problems, and then we rigorously evaluate the impact of these solutions. So this can work, this can work, are not difficult. And I'd like to emphasize that we either identify or design solutions. There are really three types of studies that we do. So this is more nuanced than that. One type of study is where we evaluate the impact of a large-scale development program that was already designed, and we want to know if that works. But a lot of the studies we do actually, we evaluate the impact of innovative ideas that we came up with in partnership with practitioners. So a lot of what we do is innovation, that depends on name, as well as the rigorous impact evaluation. Our work is funded by a large number of funders, individuals, governments. So now the question is, okay, that all sounds good, but how do we evaluate the impact of it? If you have a business and you want to know that you're successful, it's enough to know that you're generating profits, it's enough to know that people are buying your product. But it's not the same when you want to evaluate the social impact of your product, because the impact is already different. You don't immediately see what you're buying. So what we do is that we use one of the most rigorous evaluation methods out there, which is born from the pharmaceutical industry, the randomized trial method. And look, when you buy a medicine, you probably expect that it has been rigorously tested, and you don't even think about it. And so it's fair to say that clinical trials in the pharmaceutical world have really revolutionized the way that you think about medicine. And so our goal is really to introduce the same standard in the international development space. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how that works with an example. And so without that, the risk is really that we are left to our hopes or to our beliefs and to our ideology as made a lot of it in the world in this case. So take the example of microcredit. So I think there is a tendency, probably in any sector, but particularly in ours, there is a tendency to want to find the panacea, the one solution that can solve the whole poverty problem. And at some point, microcredit was very much believed to be such a solution. So there were numerous claims like this one by the UN, for example. Microcredit has been changing people's lives and rehabilitating the community. On the other hand, and that was in 2005, and that's only one among numerous statements. At the same time, in India, I was working in India at the time in the microfinance sector, so I remember that it was quite a bit there. At the same time in India, there were numerous articles like this one in the media accusing microcredit institutions to push poor people into over-indebtedness, push them into suicides, and because of this crisis, a lot of microfinance institutions actually got closed. So who to believe here? Well, the good news is that you can actually answer this question by setting up a rigorous test of microcredit. And it turns out that there have been 6 or 7 randomized evaluations of traditional microcredit programs around the world, some of them by ICA, some of them by others. But here is how it works. So if you want to set up a microcredit evaluation, so first you'll identify a group of communities who are eligible, that you really want to give microcredit. And then we are going to randomly split this group into 2 groups. One group that will receive the intervention, the microcredit will be offered to people in those regions, and one group, the control group, that will not be offered the intervention. And the reason why you do that is to ensure that you are comparing oranges and oranges. So what you want to know is what would have happened in the absence of offering microcredit. So ideally, you would want to clone people and observe them at the same time with and without microcredit, but obviously you cannot do that. Not yet. And I hope you will do it. So this is kind of the closest that you can get. So the randomized evaluation basically separates the impact of the program from other factors, either the passage of time or the fact that some people are more motivated than others. And so after 2 years or 5 years, whatever number of time you choose, you measure the outcomes you are interested in both groups and compare. So what did we find on microcredit? The results from this 6 or 7 evaluations are actually pretty consistent with some differences here and there. But by and large, the answer is that none of these claims were true. So microcredit has some positive effects. It helps some people increase their profits. It helps some people who invest more into their business. It helps here and there with a couple of social outcomes in some of the sites, but for the most part, not much. It's a useful financial tool, but it's not transformational, anti-poverty tool that it is claimed to be. On the other hand, it doesn't harm people. And again, it's a financial tool, and it gives people more freedom to choose how to spend their money and what to do with their day. So it's all back to able. So in fact, our recommendation is certainly not to not do that, but our recommendation is that this is a financial tool. This is something that investors should invest in. It can be invested in. But this is not something that philanthropic dollars should be invested in. If you invest philanthropic dollars in the financial inclusion space, maybe they should be spent figuring out how we can design new financial projects that are more adapted to the needs of consumers, like insurance or savings. So that's on. So going back to the big picture, the good news is that in the last 15 years, there has been quite an explosion of randomized control trials. IT has been part of it, but not just us. There are many organizations doing it. And that's a great thing because it's really grown the body of evidence. Not to the point where it's going back to the graph I showed you earlier, comparing the investments in R&D in this field versus others. I think we still have a way to go. But certainly there's been a lot of progress in the last 15 years, and we have learned a lot. So that's good news. Now you may ask, okay, that's great. It's showing the number of studies that have been done, and it's showing like one result. What happens? Where does this result go? Do they actually translate into actual impact on the drug? Well, the answer is yes, and I'm not going to claim it's automatic. I'm not going to claim it's easy because it's not. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. But the great thing is that there are examples where the evidence generated from the studies was used and applied and scaled for creating really like for the tool. So going back to the example of the school-based development program, you see the study that was done in around 2005 that showed that giving development to kids in school was really effective to keep them in school longer. But in terms of there were also longer-term follow-ups that showed that as adults, the kids that had received development were had better wages. So the economic improvements were long-term. So anyway, this program was scaled by an organization called Belong the World first, and now it's evidence actually. So more than 100 million of kids have now been developed in Kenya, India, and many other countries. They work in partnership with education. You're probably familiar with the traditional construction programs and with the initial evaluation of this program in Mexico called Progresa. There was a randomized evaluation of Progresa that showed the impact of this program. And thanks to the evaluation, the Mexican government kept the program to the election today. But many other countries that started adopting this program, so it's reached now 365 million or more. There is another program that is evaluated at IPA that's now reached several million people as well. It's a growing distances program. So the idea is that when you put the growing distances next to the water source in the community, people are more likely to go to the safe water because it's like a reminder, right? You go to the water source and the growing distances is right there, so it's like, this is the time when you actually think that you don't really know what you don't have to think about it. Water comes from the water. So that program has to be extended again. And there are many other examples. I'll take you through one now. It's a study in Zambia that it's a great example of evidence used by policymakers, but it's also a great example of a study that doesn't evaluate like the large scale program versus small program, and the micropolitan, but it's a study that evaluates a small tweak to an existing policy that can have eventually big effects. And this is to show you that there are many types of randomized control trials. They don't all have to be, evaluating a massive program versus no program. Like, very often we want to compare like different ways of doing the same thing, and this can actually be so in this case, the question was around community health workers. So as you know, a lot of governments use community health workers to compensate the fact that there is a scarcity of doctors in the country. So they are typically people from the community who distribute healthcare people, with households, distribute the medicine, that kind of stuff. The government, the Ministry of Health of Zambia was about to scale this program to work with more community health workers, and they wanted to know how to recruit the most effective community health workers. So in other words, like what type of people are the best health workers? That's a $1 million question. Like any company will ask themselves the same questions about recruitment. And so to answer this question, they set up a simple test, which a lot of companies actually do in-house, and they call it A/B testing. But A/B testing is basically a randomized control trial that tests kind of tweaks. And so what they did is that they compared in partnership with researchers, activities with IPA, Navas, Harvard, and others. They set up a comparison between two recruitment strategies. The first recruitment strategies emphasize the community service. You come and be a community health worker to serve your community. The second recruitment strategy emphasizes career growth. Be a community health worker and you will boost your skills and grow your career. So just a couple of word differences. That's it. Can we take this now? Who of you thinks that the community service would work better? But anyway, yeah, it turns out that the career oriented recruitment strategy worked better, and in fact, quite better. So during the first 18 months of work, the community health workers conducted almost 30% more visits to households when they were recruited through this strategy. They did more community meetings, they did more patients, and this also resulted into positive health outcomes as well. And the great news is that the Ministry of Health is now using this recruitment strategy to recruit their next phase of 5,000 community health workers. And so if you kind of multiply the effect that we found on our sample by 5,000, this process will eventually pretty big impact. An additional more than 300,000 households visited and 70,000 more community visitors. And all of these basically have no extra cost. It's just a difference. That's an example that we like a lot because it's a great example of a simple. And I won't lie to you, it's a simple test. That doesn't mean the study was ultra simple because we did collect a lot of data on health outcomes, which is not simple, right? But you have to do it once. The intervention itself is quite simple and can be easy. But there are also a lot of things where you don't always want, in that case, you care a lot about health outcomes, but there are a number of other tests where you don't necessarily need to collect a lot of data on the final outcome. It kind of depends on what you care about. We've done a lot of studies on how to get people to save more. To be tested, sending them text reminders. In that case, what you're interested in, they save more. You're also interested in other things, but that's a primary outcome. And that doesn't have to be a very massive and expensive study. Now I'm going to give you another example of this time evaluating a large and complex program. And this is a program called Graduation Out of Poverty. So the problem that this intervention tries to address is the fact that a lot of people in very, very extreme poverty and are not being reached by a lot of anti-poverty programs, like PPA programs. The hypothesis is that in order to help these households, one approach won't be sufficient. It has to be a combination of approaches. And it's a big push approach. So there has to be a bunch of things at the same time to take them out of poverty and the main. So the main component of the intervention is the transfer of the productive assets, cow or a goat. But then there are a bunch of other things that happen at the same time. They get livelihood training and handholding, and they get incredibly weak. They get skills training, they get a consumption stipend to prevent them from going into hunger cycles. In some cases, they may get access to healthcare or savings, etc. So it's a bundled package. This approach was evaluated in several different countries. And unlike the microcredit example, this was actually a coordinated set of studies. And that's something that's really exciting to us because we think that replicating studies across contexts is really important because that's what helps us understand why and under what circumstances do something work. It helps us be more confident because sharing evidence that we not just work in one place, but might also work elsewhere in a certain settings. So the study was done in these several countries, and there are some longer-term follow-ups that happening there. So overall, the effects are quite visible of this approach. This is a graph showing increases in consumption. So consumption increases by quite a bit in most sites, except Honduras, where the program actually didn't work. And the great thing is that the effects persisted a year after the program was completed, after there was no housing. And there are now indications that it was history after several years as well. And there can be effects on a number of factors: consumption, assets, but also aspiration, positivity, and things like that. The other important thing is that when you account for the long-term effects and compare the expected long-term effects to the cost of the program, the cost benefits look pretty good. And this is an important because this is not a cheap program. So depending on the country, the benefits to cost range from 200 to 400%. So on Honduras, the program didn't work because the chicken that was the product that was distributed unfortunately died. It's a sad story. That's why it doesn't contradict from a research perspective, it doesn't contradict the whole story because the productive asset was the central component of this program. So it confirms that without the productive asset, the program was good. So the program is now being expanded in a number of countries. It's being expanded in India by the UNDP that is being expanded in Ethiopia by the government. And we are currently working with a number of organizations and social communities to help them adopt and extend this program, but also to set up a new set of studies. That's the same message. Results always lead to new questions. And the new set of studies will be quite focused on how can this program be made even more cost-effective. So are there ways that this program can be made cheaper while achieving the same impact? Fewer houses. one of the things that can be changed in the vendor. The other set of questions will be around the implementer. So how will this program be adapted to social protection ministries? That kind of thing. Great, so I stop here. And just to conclude, this is basically a case for evidence. Often our decision is not right. And when it's right, well, by that, since often it's not right, it's important to generate evidence to confirm of this belief. It's also really important to understand what doesn't work and why. It's aggregate and what works and why. And it's certainly not failure. We don't see evaluation as an accountability tool. We really see the studies as forward-looking tools that help you discover things that work. So again, more as R&D rather than accountability. And hence, finding that something doesn't work is not bad. And finally, with development is copy and paste. So if something works here, you can't just move it to another place. That's why it's so important when we evaluate something to understand not only whether it works, but also why and why not, and what are the mechanisms. And again, that goes back to the issue of progress. That's why it's important. These studies do more than so yeah, and I finish by saying that we'd love to work with you. I think in order to be working, we want to be a resource so we can support with conducting evaluations, of course, but we can really support by sharing what we have learned on another topics. Support by brainstorming on program design and using that evidence. Maybe to help.
We have about 15 minutes for questions. I have two already, but perhaps should we take a round of questions? We have definitely Grenada. I'm happy to rather take the rest of the Grenada and Cuba.
Thank you much. See all the things that's going through how many positions that's important. Second question here.
So the first question is the why. It's really important, and I did mention this briefly at the end, that understanding why whether it works or whether it doesn't work. So an RCT in itself will not tell you why something works or doesn't. Okay? But that making sure that you do answer that is what you think is good for your data. It's not the RCT design in itself that can do that, but you have to set up your study in a way that can answer this question. So first, it's really important, as you say, when you start evaluating something, that you have a clear theory of change of why this intervention may work. And then you want to set up your study and your measurements in a way that you can test that theory. So you could do that by measuring intermediary outcomes. So, for example, so, let's take the example of the community health worker again. You could have just measured final health outcomes. You may have seen that all health outcomes improved in this population versus this one. But we wouldn't know why if we hadn't also observed what is happening. We observe that they are more productive. They go to houses more and they visit people. So in that case, you measure into outcomes. Another thing that one can do to understand why something works or not is to set up an experiment where you have two treatment groups instead of one. And you can, that's when you can test two variations of the intervention that will help you disentangle with the back component of the. So going back to the graduation example, that's actually, we know that the cognitive aspect is an essential part of this program. In a way, it's concealed like on the strategy. But it's a bundled program by definition. And it was important that we evaluate the bundle because in that case, the theory is that it's a bundled bundle. But now, some of these components might be more important than others. And the way you figure that out is by having more than one group. So if you want to test, average thousands of visits to the T, you may want to test one variation with fewer variations. So yes, absolutely, it's really important to understand why something works or not, because otherwise it's not very useful. And if you want to be applying knowledge from one context to another, you need to understand. Sometimes you need more than just one study to really see the whole. And you want to achieve that just through the RCT design, but you will achieve that by other aspects. I hope that was a good one. On the sketching, so the graduation model is that's a model that there is a lot of interest in this approach, and there is a big coalition of organizations behind both the program and the evaluation. So I think that's why in the case there was already a lot of interest in the program, and I think certainly the evaluation is helping, but it's certainly not the only thing. So and the reason why we were able to evaluate the graduation approach in 7 countries in the first place is because CGAP was very interested in testing the approach in a number of cases. They were really interested in the way that it works, so they were the one that had the one that the Ford Foundation was really keen, so they came on board, and a lot of powerful players. And this is quite related to a number of programs that have been tried by different foundation ministries in various places. So it's one case where there are lots of various players with a lot of influence, and that's combined with the fact that there is strong evaluation of the I think all of that comes together. You don't always have that this coalition behind the program, right? I think it's both the levels, the fact that they are in the and that you don't really know what how the segment. I think it speaks to the level data, the coalition and what was behind the fact that we were evaluating. We were told by the ministry, we were told by the government of Guyana the African empire. It's a great story, but it doesn't always happen. But so that's a serious thing. In the pages, studies are not as high profile and make it more useful to learn about them. I think how you get from doing the evidence to doing like I said, there is not one regulation. And you could have a one kind of it's not invite me again. Just talk about it because this is something that we think a lot about. But as I said, our mission is not just to generate the evidence. We want to see the evidence use as a ground, try and make it better.
I think that's already a lot of it, but that makes no sense to be doing this. In a way, the political economy has changed. The theory has changed, but also especially because especially there are other factors that yes, and I would also say, and also touched on it now, a lot of these interventions go on with the objectives of funding. And you may have been successful in one area of it, but it will disturb and it will continue your effort. And I'm therefore wondering whether there have been also examples of trials where you really learn things that definitely were or that really raised red flags on how it disturbs or interferes in the religious process or how do you ensure that the trials are used in a way that
are you asking if there are studies that have unintended negative outcomes, or we were that the twins were disadvantaged and level of experience of studies that research or something like that?
you may go something also like more saying how you the whole political aspects of that that they may have more than one objective, something that they different objectives but also other examples of trials that may have unintended outcomes for success.
I'm sure there is no point of that. You've done this for kind of research, look at the West and Honduras and look at RCTs and whether the local government is being elected, there is 99% and different every like they were awarded. It did affect voting. So the person who knows is randomized
That's not an uncommon finding. That's not a feature of the study. So it's more of a feature of we actually recently had a study that found the opposite. We had a study that offered that gave people Latin Nigeria. Is this a serious program? Sorry, we got done a few similar studies. And one of them followed up with a voting pattern after people got cash and I think good job standing. And had the opposite effect. Actually, 3 people off to vote but not necessarily supporting the government. More people voted for the financial empowered after they moved away from part of the program. So you never know. But I was thinking, so along the lines of what you were saying, I can't think of a study that has, I think about this a lot. We have ethics boards and IRBs academic ethics boards that oversee the study and we also monitor for any negative aspects of the program. I am not surprisingly, because I have not encountered negative backup outcomes. So we have no outcomes all the time. We have no outcomes. I have not been thinking of a study where we had negative impacts. I would love to do a portfolio. But it was an intervention that we already done. I think it's the prevention of And the assumption was that with young people, as simple as the nexus, allow sex. And they give answers that are written by young Ugandans in their language that consent, the reproductive rights, the aim was to decrease Google was involved, and it was. It actually was that. You're right. Sorry, I was.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking.
The cooperative would like look at it with a new lens. I would say it was success because by the sector engagement, quite some uptake that but then there was a study done that looked at what the effect actually without the outcome. Now the why, the question of the assumption is that a young man used to go to the icebreaker and talk about sex, that this number of the effect. But that's not
I was thinking about that thinking and
even that one, I think you measured it to promiscuity. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if you get to
I don't know.
but it's just going to be.
Yeah, that's probably I mean, it's a logical outcome. We had a similar one where we found increased promiscuity among men and increased abstinence among women. So we don't know what the ultimate effect is.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. Can you take us through budgets? Sure. So do you want to start off with Africa and then we go down? Okay, I think I will put the question on my budget. One of them is more on how would you use, how would I use to keep safe, measure the impact of programs and economic activities. So it's like the administration on RCTs and focus on those small as well. How would you use these things how would you use and second is just one of the viewers online would like to remind everyone that I just think RCTs have been efficient and that they're not going to the typical which female way or the non-UNDP way, what do you have to know? It was pretty cool response.
The $1 million survey that people provide more than 10,000 survey and stuff like this. So how you communicate that to decision makers, and also how you engage with decision makers that actually take conversations and actually try to their using their processes to obviously one of the issues so on the side as well. So that's good.
That's great. If you the subgroup ratio between what the question asked earlier, yes, absolutely, we look at impact on different subgroups. It's best if that is planned early on when you design the studies because you want to avoid like teaching problems. But it's very much part of understanding the why. It's part of really understanding the impact and why does it work and who, for the very, depending on the intervention and the patient we are asking, we really want to look at different subgroups. So the gender is certainly the second one that we're interested in. I think that I think we want to look at also if you want to the first more of the thing. We will look at education studies, we will look at impact higher on engaging with the better in the first place, the higher on the class. Rather than so yes, we do look at something. This is our of interest, depending on the theory of change. It just has to relate to the theory of change, as much as I can say. The on the limitations of RCTs, yeah, RCTs is limitations like any other disability. So, because there are things we can't answer with an RCT. Programs that are done nationwide or maybe the interest policy, the macro policy, or anything that's done nationwide, we have to be an RCT. So there are actually ways to do it. We can randomize how much to inform people about the policy change, the application of the policy like that. It doesn't really all large infrastructure programs, so that may be hard to evaluate. When possible, though, it is the best way to eliminate any bias. It also helps to reduce sample size compared to older methods of how to do that, like the ratio difference in design and different solutions to actually need other sample sizes. But yeah, it has limitations like any other methods for sure. And there are other types of studies and research that is important. That is not even evaluated. Very important to qualitative studies and descriptive studies to understand how they work. So I certainly agree with that. And so when we talk to our partners about what we do, we have to be very clear about this is the question we are trying to answer and not something else. So how do we convince practitioners and policymakers either to do the studies or to use the results? Again, there isn't one answer. You have to take a long-term view there because it's like a new change process. It takes time. But I think what's really important is to be relationships and trust. And so something that is important for us is the fact that we have 14 country offices. In those countries, obviously we can run high quality research because we collect a lot of data, so having this long-term presence allows us to do that. But it also allows us to build long-term relationships with local decision makers. And that this relationship, the trust that we build, the credibility that we build is really key. And so often when we see organizations take things up, it didn't happen all at once. So it happens because they're engaged in the process itself, or it happens because actually but the other is also to remember that we are not alone. We cannot achieve this alone. So we need, as I said earlier, building coalition around effective ideas. There are organizations that are far more influential than countries. Yeah, it's what done. So how do we want to be done? So it's really looking at the ecosystem and understanding how in sort of sense. The NGOs or organizations with integrating sort of collective learning into their work kind of bring more immediately. Anyway, I think there are questions you can't answer, but there are certain studies where I do not advise organizations to run them on their own. Some of the studies we do, it could be a use of their time to do it, but there are things like more operational that can be done in-house that will then be open like the test to do some type of design or why don't NGOs do the same. I think one is diversity, then least control. I mean, I have a they're extremely efficient. And so many things that really like to be better economy that we don't fit. And so the question for us is, can we help organizations do that capacity? And that's something we do actually with this thing. And I think actually something that we are now starting is an initiative that is called Goldilocks. Not usually not much. And so the idea is to help organizations to design the right fit and then you study what kind of data should you collect. There is a tendency to also collect either too much data and then you don't know what to do with it, or too little. So how do you get to a point where you collect the right amount of data and you use it effectively? And very often our advice may be don't try to do an impact evaluation. You don't need an impact evaluation. Or you are not the right organization to run an impact evaluation. You may be surprised to know this, but we certainly don't encourage like people to do organizational trials all the time. Actually, locally. But often we may, like, instead of trying to do a bad impact evaluation, we do monitoring. So I think it's bandwidth and this awareness and yeah, I think I need one question about measuring impact of the community level. You can do that as well with an RCT. It's not at the, it is at the village level you can do that depending on how you are. It's on the line at the village level and there are certain outcomes that you can measure at the village level. But it's true that typically your unit of observation will be at the houses or individual level. But we often on the line of the community level, which will allow us to understand what's happening at the community level. A very common question is, will there be spillover? If you give the intervention to this person, because this person will be beneficiary of the graduation program, and that person will other people will also benefit. So that's something that we often try to measure because it's a really important question. The program has to be spillover. And it's great, you need to use it. And so to measure that, you need to set up experiments at the community level and to get to know that you can the relaxation of interest.
I think that there's also that block there that you do all the time. You have things like prices, we do an economic expansion that's running the marketplace for Kenya because they are going to the national road improvement plan that ended up breaking down. That was actually randomized based on market prices goes down because you need to have more options. So then before it's going to satellite data, for example, to measure how many people as technology indirect measure of using
I know we just crossed 11 a.m. mark, but I understand you report have emails and things to get back to, but if you would like to do one last round of okay, that's okay. Is that okay? I did have a question which I was
I won't be offended.
yes, okay. But I did have a question which might have also been which is not anything with RCTs, not anything with impact evaluation. I'd love to know if you guys have like a initial step, a initial problem. Is there a checklist or a set of questions that you ask And then, okay, when I'm looking at this problem, what is the best way to evaluate the impact and what is the best fit test for those, just for us, for those of us who are entering the school and learning more about the education system. And then I think, any more questions? Any other questions?
Can I ask my last question?
Yes, please. No, no. Okay. So I had a question about, when you are talking about things that you said, concepts are changing, the concept is dynamic. But when you recommend that we do evaluate in the program, it's still the concept, whether it's still in the deliver that feedback. You build into the functioning of that program sort of early warning indicator. But instead of having students drop out of school, that we just see early on, that the program that we start working the shape, new roads, new developments, that would be very interesting to hear. And then this is my last question, which is about scaling to different geographies. So the UNDP and our agencies here are in most countries around the world. And what we want to understand and we learn about a really good topic, a really good intervention, we love to introduce it into context. Is the idea that before we introduce simply to new context, the idea to first test it in that we always test it in that context before going forward, or is there have a lighter way of assessing the adaptation of it?
Great question. So on ethical considerations, we want to make sure that so I guess we're talking about ethical considerations of randomization. There is a duty ethical considerations of working with the countries. Because working with the centers is like any service in the documentation. So when working with the condition expectation, one of us will go to institutional level of the world, then we will have to do a survey in the way that make sure that the problem is going to be life safe. In terms of the ethics randomizing, when we evaluate programs, typically we don't know how the program will be, so we are not denying something to someone that we know is working. That's not it. And if you can, if there were if there are the resources to do something and you know it works, you just it before. That's not a good idea. Usually when we evaluate something, we don't know for sure that it will work and that it will work in that context. And very often, the resources that are limited anyway. Usually, when a partner where you have resources to do your program in 100 schools only anyway. You might as well choose this 100 schools randomly because you won't be putting your schools, but that also allows you to do very easy. And the other question was on government and EU. The methodology doesn't change depending on the type of partner. The type of intervention obviously will change, right? So, and the challenges certainly differ, right? The government work with many different levels and convincing people to stick to the different design products with the different it's more challenging, but a little bit more. You see, it is important to work with government because because it may be harder to test like new ideas with government. This is the kind of experiments where you test new things and you want to kind of A/B testing that works better with non-profit and control implementation more. At the same time, it's really important to work with government because, as I say, this is the awareness building happens throughout the research process. So working with the partner or the new science, I think, producing these outcomes. And the other thing is that the impact of an intervention done by a brain might be very different from the impact of that same intervention done by a non-profit. Because incentives to do it. So, so on the video, when should we do a randomized control trial, when should we not? It's not black and white, but yeah, there are a couple of things to take into consideration. So one question, of course, is, are we going to learn something new? If we did a study, would we learn something new? So if it's something that is already evaluated in a number of different contexts, then maybe we don't need to do yet another test. Unless we think that we learn something new in that context. A very different context we work there. Unless you're adding something new, so maybe you're doing new studies on the gravitation model that we're looking at evaluation. So you want to learn something new. Is there a very clear theory of change? There should be a clear theory of change, or why do we think people have been working with it? Do we think that possibilities of the program that we can high that yes, in this community of programs, we could scale to the liquid to go much larger and so these are, questions around does it make sense to do evaluation. Then there are questions around, can you do that? And then when you're looking at other partners, you look at whether they are allowed enough. You need a certain control size. An organization that only works in a specific group, it depends. You look at the profits and then you may ask you about when does it make sense to reevaluate impact or the context question. So I think what you're asking is just to you evaluated something somewhere before. Now you scale that program, you keep doing that program, could you reevaluate it like sometime later when you got at scale and you still maybe you take some other stuff, you evaluate it elsewhere. I think it depends, like not necessarily, but I would say if it's only been evaluated once, I would say probably yes. But again, you have to look at the theory of change. And when you do a program at a larger scale, are there things in the theory of change that might be slightly different from the high level version? And often the answer might be yes, right? The type of worker you use, the program might be different. There might be enough differences between the scale version and the initial version that we want to evaluate again at a larger scale. We have to also be doing that giving good reason that we them to evaluate the first phase of the program, the activity impact, we allow evaluating the scale version. And same with working in a different context. I think evaluating something again in a different context allows you to define the theory of change and understand under what circumstances something goes or not. But there is a point after which what you need is not with a new impact evaluation, but rather with monitoring to check that the components of the program that make the program successful are being implemented properly. So I worked in Ghana on a religion education program evaluation, and we have adaptation of a program that was done in India by Qatar, leaders, etc. We worked with the Ministry of Education in Ghana So in this program, one of the important things is that the community tutors are located to work with the lowest performing students in the classroom. So they have to test the kids and identify the lowest performing students and focus on them and keep them resistant. That's kind of, and that's a, so that program is very different from just recruiting a community tutor who has been there in the classroom helping a teacher. So if you are studying that program, well, you want to do monitoring to check that this assistant is in fact testing the kids and focusing on the lowest performing students, because if the assistant doesn't do that, well, it's a different problem. Right? So, um, yeah, so there is a point where, in some cases, university is not a new impact evaluation, but there's this monitoring that helps confirm that the theory of change is good. But in most cases, we think that replicating studies in a number of different contexts is important, especially the nonsense about theory of change in the graduation case, we do it in 6 countries, 6 the magic number, maybe not, right? It also depends on how context sensitive something will be. There are some interventions that are probably less context sensitive than others. Well, the medicine is not context sensitive, right? If they are warm somewhere, that medicine will work, whether you are here or there. But a business schooling or different type of instances, that might be very complex. It will depend on that.
So much. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you so much for your interest and really great questions. Yeah, we'd love to keep in touch. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.